Hey y'all, and welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to check out another one of my videos. Today I'm really excited to be sitting down to give you guys an updated fall palette favorites. This is going to be my top 10 fall palettes for 2021. I did this last year and I was kind of toying with whether I should do it again because I didn't want this to get like too repetitive or just, I don't know, boring to you guys. So I asked in my last, like seasonal favorites video, which was a summer palette video, and I was like, should I do another fall or is that going to be too repetitive? And someone had a great idea to, kind of do it from the viewpoint of like, do those palettes that you like last year still hold true this year, maybe just do a top 10 and see which ones make the cut, if there's any new ones that take its place. And I think that is a fantastic idea. So that is what I'm going to be doing today, and I'm going to give you guys 10 amazing fall palettes that I absolutely love. Everything about the palette, about the looks that you get from the palette just scream fall to me. Some of them are from last year, but most of them are from this year because I have tried so many fantastic fallish palettes that I am so excited. You guys know I love fall. I love the tones of fall. So anytime a whole palette like embodies the fall vibes, yes, please, I love it. So we have 10 palettes to talk, and then I'm going to have some runners up, which some people might be like, isn't that cheating? But it's not cheating because the only palettes that are runners up are discontinued, because I thought about putting the discontinued ones in here, but I was like, you can't get it. So my top 10 are all palettes that currently, as of this morning, you can still get. Hopefully I did my research well, but I tried to like punch it all in. Everything's available that I can see online. So I was like, okay, top 10 are palettes that are still available to purchase if you want them. But runners up are going to be palettes that I also really do love, but they're unfortunately not available anymore or are sold out, that kind of thing. So that's going to be at the very end, very briefly, because a lot of the palettes that I love, like a lot of my fall tone palettes, are for some reason limited edition. But anyway, that is what's going to go on today. So it's going to be top 10 and then some honorable mentions because these palettes are fantastic. And even if they're not available anymore, I still want to mention them because I still really do love them. You just can't get them. So if you have them in your collection, pull them out and love on them because they're amazing. So with all that said, let's go ahead and get right into it, and let's talk about my top 10 favorite fall palettes. Okay, now these top 10 isn't going to go in no particular order, so I just want to throw that out there. I'm just kind of picking them and going. I'm not going to rank them from, 10 all the way up to 1. I am, however, going to give you guys my new palettes first, and then I'm going to show you guys which ones made the cut from last year's video that are still in my top 10. And I should say it's, 2021 palettes, but there's a couple months in there that I have of 2020 because I did the fall palette video and that was in the fall. So I tried some more palettes during the winter, before the year was over that I did want to include because they were newer from that video. So mostly 2020, but a little bit of 2020. So first up that I'm going to grab just because it's on top is the Midas Cosmetics Artistry Volume 2 palette. This palette was an end of 2020 palette that I tried, and such a good palette. Really do enjoy this. I love how simple it is, but even in its simplicity, it captures those autumn tones. Yes, it's a grungy green, which I love when it comes to fall, but it also has that red in there to really bring that kind of like the fall vibe. There's a lot of just red depth I feel like I see, especially as leaves are turning and whatnot right before it hits like brown. There's a lot of that beauty in the leaves that I just love to see. So with this color being in here, I really feel like it gives the looks that you can create with this palette a lot of that depth and that hue that really lends itself to fall. And then this shade in the middle is a really special shade. I don't know if it's a multi-chrome, but it's definitely like a duochrome. It's a very, very beautiful, like shifty, sparkly shadow. Really did enjoy that. So yeah, definitely had to place this as one of my top 10 when it comes to fall. It's a great little palette, not too expensive. I think it's like $12. I have a coupon code with Midas. You can get it cheaper. They have sales all the time. Wait for a sale. It's a great little palette to have. Okay, next up is going to go to Emme Cosmetics. This is the Monet Jasper version 2 palette, and this palette is a gorgeous palette for fall. Just look at it. There is some blue in there, which I don't know so much that like blue, especially a bright blue, it's like how fallish is that? But like even in the fall, there's the beautiful sky. So it's like, it's fine. And also with these, fall palettes, they're fall to me. They're looks that the majority of the palette I get just make me think of fall. So anyway, that's why I'm putting this palette in here, because the looks that I was getting with this palette really did make me think of the fall. And I feel like the blue was just a pop of something special. I love this yellow up here. And if you haven't tried Emme Cosmetics, they're a smaller brand in Canada, I believe, but their mattes are just amazing, so smooth, and their shimmers are beautiful. They're nothing too intense like sparkly, like I feel like is very popular in 2021, but they are very pigmented and very smooth, very nice shimmers to work with. So I really do like. I'm trying not to touch them so I don't become a mess by the end of this video, but like, sometimes they're just too pretty. Anyway, I definitely had to give the Monet Jasper a spot as one of my top 10s that I tried from the last time I did a fall palette inspired video, because it's just such a nice palette where the tones just scream fall. Next up has to go to Endangered Cosmetics. This is the Red Panda palette. This is a relatively recent palette that I've tried, but oh my goodness, so much about this just screams fall. Every single look that I did, I was like, man, too bad she didn't launch this just before the fall. Like, that's what I thought every time I wore this look, because I was just like, the eye looks were just making me think of fall and the gorgeousness of the fall weather outside as, you know, the leaves are turning. I'm going to be very repetitive in this video, but anyway, all the looks that I did really did make me think of fall. It's very warm, you know, the tones in here are very warm, but it has that range from like really kind of like red brown, there's even like a black in here, but then you have a more brick red, but you have the orange and then more like bright mustard. So you have the tones in here that just, it's a great palette. I've already reviewed it on my channel. I think I have a video, you know, just using this if you want to see the type of look that I got from it, but the type of look that I got from it, and like I just said, all the looks that I got from it definitely made me think of fall, so I had to give this one a shout out. I should say with all of these palettes that I'm mentioning today, I have reviewed them in my Palette Palooza Countdown review series, which I'll link the playlist up here, and if you go to those videos and find the one where I reviewed it, I include all the eye looks. So if you want to see the eye looks that I create with all these different palettes, you can check out those videos and see what I'm talking about when I say that, like with this one, each of the eyeshadow looks that I created just screamed fall. I loved it. Of course, I had to also include the Muse Beauty Van Gogh palette. This was at the end of 2020, but like, look at this. I remember using it and I enjoyed it so much whenever, you know, I reviewed it. I think it was like an end of December into January, but I remember creating looks and just thinking like, I wish I had this in the fall, because that's kind of the vibe I was getting. The feeling I had every time I did a look is just like, such fall vibes. They got the green in there, the yellow, the orange, this bright yellow to really be a pop of something, but then they have the deeper tones to really deepen up a look, to give me the depth that I like when it comes to very fallish tones. And yeah, this is just a solid palette. I know oh wait, Muse Beauty. I should clarify that Muse Beauty changed the name. I'm going to put the name on the screen because I'm still learning it, but I think it's Kailav. I'm probably butchered it. I need to go back and reread their email where they explained to me how to pronounce it. I need to reread that like 10 more times before I got it, but just to throw it out there, they did have a name change. So anyway, this palette is still a Van Gogh palette, is a fantastic choice, and I just love how small and concise it is, but it still has a wide range when it comes to the type of looks you can get, because there's just so much color and just fun to be had in this palette. I did like a one look with this, and I remember I used just so many colors, and it was just so fun and unique of a eye look that I really did enjoy it. So definitely had to place the Van Gogh palette as one of my top 10 palettes for fall. I'm sure this comes as no surprise, but Nomad Cosmetics America's Parks palettes definitely earns a spot in my top 10 for fall, because like, look at this. Look at this. This has a gorgeous array of very just fallish tones, but also has like, I love the life to it as well as, you know, being very fall-ish, but there's still some bright colors up there to really, like I said, bring life to it. It's not like super duper deep or super grungy or, you know, dead, I guess you could say, for fall, because fall is most things dying and going to sleep for winter, but you know what I mean. I love the little pops of brightness in here that really liven up a look and liven up the palette in general, but it still keeps to those very fall tones with the green and the more purple, burgundy, brown, and mustards and oranges and whatnot. And yeah, every single look that I did with this palette, I just kept saying, such a fall palette, such a fall palette, such a gorgeous fall palette. And this is definitely a palette that I would love to travel with, because I like that it's, you know, when I travel, I tend to go very low-key with my makeup just because I'm enjoying family time. And with this palette, it's like stays pretty neutral and warm. They're very easy looks because, you know, Nomad Cosmetics quality is fantastic, but it still has color and it still has the pops and it has the tones that I like. I love autumn tones on my eyes for like an everyday type of thing. So this is definitely a palette that I would consider taking with me. America's Parks was kind of all about traveling in America, whatever, visiting all the parks. So I love that. This palette really does make me like, oh, do I have to go somewhere? I want to take you with me. But yeah, this is definitely a palette that every look that I did, every time I pulled it out, it definitely screamed fall to me. And last up for new palettes that I tried since my last year's fall palette video, I had to give a spot to the Made by Mitchell Feet on the Ground palette. This big behemoth of a palette. Like it's like as big or bigger. I think it's bigger than my head. It's a big palette. Thankfully it folds back so I don't have to hold that big thing up. But here is the palette. Tell me this doesn't scream fall. Like maybe, you know, cover this because it is a very bright shadow for a fall palette. But like cover that and everything else about it. Very, very fallish. I love all the tones. I love the purple, like those deep purple reddish tones to mix in with the greens and the mustards and the oranges to really get that depth for a fall look. So I feel like this palette just has a little bit of everything in it. And it had a nice formula. I remember enjoying the formula. I think the shimmer formula might have been a little thin. It's been a little while. I think it's been a year since I've tried this, so it's been a little while. But I do remember really enjoying the looks, and just the color story is right up my alley. If it was smaller, I probably would think of it more, but honestly, with it being so big, I'm just like, yeah, I ain't ever taking you on a trip. You are staying in my room, not leaving my room, because you're just too big. But I mean, that aside, I still love the color story. I think it's beautiful. I love the head of black, the purple, the reddish tones, everything about it definitely was a very fall inspired palette to me. Okay, now getting into the palettes that made it to my top 10 that I mentioned in last year's video. Now I am going to link last year's fall palettes down below that video in the description box because I mentioned more than 10. I'm pretty sure I just kind of mentioned all of my favorites. But I went through that video and I was like, do any of these still hold true? Where it's like, ah, yes, I love that fall tones, top 10 for sure. And I have 4 of them that made the cut. So there are still some that even though they're older, they still hold a strong spot in my heart as being like, yes, definitely a fall palette. So we're going to go over them. First up is the Dose of Colors Cutting Edge palette. This palette right here, it's a small little 5-pan palette, so it doesn't have a whole lot of range when it comes to the tones. However, when you create looks with it, especially with these tones in here, it really does lend itself to being that more grungy green, but still a fall inspired tones because this does bring a lot of lightness to it to capture a fall look, maybe a more grungy green fall look, but still fall in my eyes. And I just had a lot of fun creating looks with this. And I remember, you know, when I was using it, I was like, man, this is just fall vibes, fall grunge to me. So I definitely wanted to keep this in my top 10 because it's such a good little palette, and it is a good travel palette. If I was going somewhere short and quick, I probably would get bored if I had to just use this palette for like a week or two because it'd be like, you guys know me, I like to change up my looks every day, and this is a little limiting because it's 5, but for a little like weekend thing, a couple days, this would be a nice little palette to have, and it'd just be my tones, my type of like a relaxed or everyday eye look that I could get without having to be here, you know, wanting to create something fun and unique, but just something simple but still me. This would be a good option, but yeah, had to keep it in my top 10 for fall. Next one might be a little bit of a cheat, but they're quads, so I'm combining them because they also both came out the same time, and I feel like they really embody fall if they're together. But I'm talking about the Midas Cosmetics a Green Tea Macchiato palette and Pumpkin Spice Latte palette. They launched these a year or 2 ago, and I think they were limited edition, but they brought them back. They're permanent. I saw them on the website, so hence why I'm keeping them in here. But these 2 quads, when you pull them and use them together, like look at this. If I can hold them up. Tell me that isn't like a gorgeous fall, like a very vibrant, gorgeous fall palette right there with those 8 together. I just love the 2 mixed together. I did a video, a tutorial. It was a different type of tutorial for me where it was like no talking, just relaxing and whatnot. And I used these 2 to create a fall look, and I used, you know, the colors together, and I absolutely love how that look turned out. It was like very orange neon, but grunge and fall, and it was just a lot of fun. So I'll leave that linked up here if you're curious to see these 2 used together. But I feel like these 2 really shine best and like have a, you know, a special place in my heart if they're together because it's just more possibilities, and having the green and the mustard, or not even mustard, but it's like a grungy green mustard with the orange and the purple, I feel like really puts together a lot of very beautiful fall looks. So wanted to keep these. Last year when I did my fall palette video, I did include these together as one, so I was like, I'm gonna keep them together and include them for one spot. Next is going to be the Venus 2 palette from Lime Crime Cosmetics. This palette is a nice little fall palette. Just like I said last time when I did it last year and mentioned them, you gotta kind of cover the blue, but then like if you cover the blue, everything else about this palette I feel like is very fall inspired. I love the brown, the orange, the green, the mustard, the black, and even the, you know, the shimmery, I don't even know what you call this, like a dirty gold greenish. I don't know, it's very beautiful. But when I was using this, especially if I didn't use the blue, the looks that I got just made me think of fall so very much. So I mentioned this last year as a favorite, and you know, going back to it, looking at it and thinking back over the looks, I was like, yeah, it's still a really great fall palette, still a favorite of mine in my collection. So I had to also include it as one of my top 10 for fall palettes. And then finally, last but certainly not least for my top 10 is going to be Menagerie's Killer Purr palette. I'm sure no one is surprised that I'm including this. This has had a fall, so please ignore the sad shimmer up here. It's fallen one too many times. But this palette color story is gorgeous. Such a gorgeous palette. It's my favorite neutral palette. Like every time I think of like, oh, what's my favorite neutral palette? Killer Purr comes to mind like top of the list right away because it's a neutral palette, but it's got interest to it. It has those tones to it that I love, those neutrals to it that I love. So it's a fun neutral palette. It's a neutral palette that's right up my alley. And then on top of that, I feel like it just has such fall vibes. The first look I did with this, which if I can remember, I'll leave it linked up here, but I have a first impressions with this. And I remember I did an all matte look with this palette and I had like this all over the lid. Oh, it's so very pretty. But Anyway, such a great palette. I really did enjoy creating looks with it, and I think back on it so very fondly. And like I said, it's a neutral palette that I absolutely love and I can never get enough of. It's a fantastic palette. Okay, so those are all my picks for top 10 for fall palettes. They are just fantastic fall palettes, but I still have a lot of loves, but as I was looking over them, I was like, a lot of these are like discontinued. You can't get them anymore. So that's when I came up with the idea of having a runners-up category where I could mention all of my favorite fall palettes that are no longer available, because, you know, if I just mentioned them all in my top 10, it would be kind of disappointing to watch, because it's like, well, great, that's your favorite, but I can't get it if I wanted to get a good fall palette. So that's why I decided to put all these in a runners-up category, and we have 8 palettes to talk about. I'm going to try not to take too long because they're not available anymore. They're discontinued or limited edition. How many times can I say this? I'm so sorry, but they're not available anymore, so I feel like I don't have to go on and on about them because they're not available anymore. So anyway, first up I'm going to mention what's on my eyes today, and a palette that I'm hoping comes back at least once or twice more, but this is the Beauty Bay Wilderness palette. I feel like I've been talking y'all's ears off about this palette, but it is a gorgeous palette, and every single color in here is just like, yes to fall. I think I created almost 10 looks with this palette, and I still feel, I think it's 9 or 10. That's why I said almost 10, because I can't remember if it's 9 or 10, but it's what's on my eyes today. I've used it, as I said, almost 10 times or thereabouts, and I still want to keep creating this. And this is a large palette, but with this being so large, I'm still like, I'd probably take this on a trip, because I love that there's such fall tones, there's such me tones, but there's so much you can do with this palette that this is a palette I could take just this one palette for 2 weeks and I would never get bored, because the type of looks you could get are endless, because you can, you know, go to different areas of this palette and create just so many fun looks, very monochromatic in each of the color categories in here, or mix it all up like I have today, get very fall tone looks. And okay, I said I wasn't going to say much about these palettes, and here I am going on and on, but anyway. Had to mention this. This is, if I had to pick my top favorite, honestly, this will probably be #1 because I love it that much. Next up is Yvette Beauty's The Autumn palette. This was my introduction to the brand. This is an all matte palette. It blew me out of the water with how wonderful this palette was. I really did enjoy it. It created so many fun looks. This is like a vibrant fall to me because it has such intense pops of colors, but I absolutely loved it. Definitely is one, when I think of autumn and fall, like, look at the cover. I can't help but think of this palette. I couldn't do a video like this without mentioning the Tribe by Juvia's Place. They've brought it back a couple times, but at this moment it does say sold out on their website, so that's why I'm including it in this section. But this is just such a favorite of mine. I loved it ever since it first launched. I like how like grungy it is, but it has the bold colors to, you know, have a pop of something interesting if you want, or you can just keep to the super grunge. The shimmers in here are absolutely stunning. This shimmer is stunning. None of them have like a sparkle finish like I feel like a lot of palettes have now, but they're great shimmers, like bordering on metallic. They're so very nice. So definitely a love of mine. Another palette is the Colored Rain Safari Rain palette. Of course, this made me think of fall. Like every time I open this is just like, yes, fall. They brought it back once for like a short while, but I don't believe it's available anymore. I think they sell everything as singles now. So if you do like this color story and want to get it and don't mind singles, I believe you can buy them all individually on their website. Or now I'm thinking, did they discontinue singles too? I can't even remember, but it's in this section because this palette is discontinued. However, look at this color story, and their shimmers are like blinding. I love their shimmer formula. It's so intense and beautiful. Ugh, love this palette. And then of course I can't mention a fall palette video without mentioning Subculture, because this was my introduction into grungy fall palettes. This was almost like maybe even on the market. I feel like this was, for mainstream market, like the makeup market, this was definitely a first of its kind, because color stories were very much like ABH, Modern Renaissance, and not like this. So this was very different, and the first moment I saw it I was like, I like that different, and that's where I went down the path of grungy autumn, grungy greens, and I've never turned back. But yeah, I have to mention this palette as well because it's fantastic. Another great palette is At Forest Side by Raw Beauty Christie. I actually compared these two in a video. Pretty sure I did. I'll leave it up there. But this is also a fantastic little palette. It's discontinued, so you can't get it anymore. However, like, look at this. Everything about the color story screams fall, and then like, look at the cover. The cutest, most beautiful packaging. I bought this, I mean, I bought it also because Raw Beauty Christie created it and I like the color story, but like also the packaging was just a cherry on top. Melt Gemini palette. I had to mention this one. You guys know I did, because like, look at this color story. I just love this color story so much. I think it was available again for a little while, but again, I just searched this morning. Everywhere I find it's sold out. So that's, in my opinion, a discontinued palette. So that's why I put this in the discontinued section, but it's still a very big love of mine. Definitely love this palette. And last up is the NYX Grind palette. This came out for a moment and left in a moment. It was so very quick on the scene. There was probably something like legal-wise. I forget if I read something about there was something wrong with the name or the pack. I don't know. It was launched and then pulled very quickly. It wasn't like phased out or even like, hey, we're sold out. It was just like gone. The brand didn't say anything about it. I'm always sad about that, but that aside, like, look at this color story. It's so beautiful. I really do enjoy this palette. I think I have a look with it on my channel, or even a 3 looks 1 palette. I can't even remember, but I think I did a review video for this. So if you want to see the type of looks that I got 3-4 years ago, it's been a little while, so who knows what my looks look like from back then, but there's a video on my channel somewhere. Alright, so those are all my palette picks, my top 10 for fall palettes with some runners up that I just, even though they're discontinued and can't get them anymore, they still hold a very special place in my heart that I felt like I just had to mention in this video, or I would just feel sad, so hence why I mentioned them. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and let me know what you guys think of this little twist on top 10 and seeing if last year's still makes it in, or if new palettes have taken its place, and I can continue that on from here on out with the next season. So, you know, in winter, whatnot, I'll see if those palettes still hold true or if new palettes have taken their place. But let me know your thoughts down below as always, and also let me know if you could only pick one ultimate fall palette, which one would it be? As I just said, all of these palettes I absolutely love, but if you like put me in a corner and was like, Katie, you can only pick one, it would be the Wilderness palette. And it's because it's such fall tones, but there's so much variety in this one palette that I absolutely love. And there's like deep and bright and, you know, colorful and grunge. Yeah. Beauty Bay, what did you do? Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments as always. And as always, if you want to continue following me and getting daily content, I'm over on Instagram. I'm LadyKatie92 over there, and I post reels, close-up eye shots, flat lays, all that sort of thing. And with all that said, I'll see you guys very soon in my next one. Bye, guys.